Hello. Today I'll be going over the game Warhammer Quest, the adventure card game. This came out in 2015. I think that's when I probably initially acquired it. Um, I gave it to my son, I think sometime in 2016, 2017, something like that. Anyway, now it's come back to me. So I decided to go ahead and do a how to set up and play on this one. So let's get started with how to set up. All right, first thing players will do is decide whether they're going to do the campaign or the Delve quest. The Delve quest is just one quest, it's not part of a campaign. Otherwise, there's the campaign that is made up of several quests. And if it's your first game, you start with quest one, which is this one that I'm going to be going over, a foul stench. But after you've completed quest one, then you move on to quest two and so forth. Um, there is a campaign log that you keep track of, things that you've attained and so forth. So if it's not the beginning of the quest, then you get your campaign log and see what cards and equipment and that kind of thing that you've got to start your next quest with. But we're starting with quest one, an uneasy or campaign, an uneasy alliance, quest one. There is only one campaign because there was no expansions for this. The original only came with one quest or one campaign and one delve quest. I think the only expansions were a couple of different hero uh, characters to use. But anyway, let's get back to setup. So we're starting with quest one, a foul stench. Players will then choose what hero character they want to play, and you choose the corresponding hero card depending on the number of players that are going to be in your game. 2 player, you would choose this one, which gives you a little more health. 3 players, you choose this one, which is a medium amount of starting health. And a 4 player game, you would choose this one that gives you the lower amount of health. I'm going to start out with a 3 player game, so I'll choose this. I'm choosing this warrior priest for one of my heroes and the 3 player hero card. All right, the other 2 heroes I'm going to choose are the Way Watcher and the Iron Breaker. There is one additional hero in the core game, which is a wizard. And then, as I said, I think there were 2 kind of hero expansions that gave 2 different heroes you could play, but I think that's all there was, no additional campaign content or anything. So these are the heroes I'm going to start with. So again, you select the hero you're going to play. Then you select that hero's 4 basic action cards. You can see these say basic. And all heroes have the same types of basic action cards: attack, aid, explore, and rest. Now, some of the additional steps on those cards are different for each of the heroes, but the basic attack, aid, explore, and rest, all heroes have those same basic actions. And we'll talk about those more in detail when we get into how to play. But anyway, you take your hero card and your 4 basic actions. There are some advanced actions that come with the game, but you do not start out with those. If you're playing the campaign, you can, as you go through the quests, you have the option to upgrade some of your basic actions into their advanced actions. But for your first quest, you will just put your advanced actions back in the box. You'll only use the basic actions. All right, so for my Way Watcher, you'll see I also have attack, aid, explore, and rest. And for my Iron Breaker, I also have the attack, aid, explore, and rest. As I said, some of the detailed steps on each of those cards are different for each of the heroes, but again, we'll talk more about that when we get into the how to play. Each of the heroes also has some legendary gear cards that come along with their hero. but you will not use those in the first quest. You can gain those later as you go through the campaign. So for your first quest, those will just remain in the box. You'll create a supply of wound tokens, progress tokens, and success tokens. Just place them somewhere near where all players can reach them. You have 3 types of condition cards: empowered, sickened, and bleeding. You'll separate those. There's several of each type. You'll separate those into their particular category and just place them somewhere near the play area where all players can reach them. Next, we'll look at the setup section for the particular quest we're going to do. You'll see the first part, it says enemies. Shuffle giant bats, gigantic spiders, goblin warriors, orc boys, 4 open standard enemies, and 2 open elite enemies together. This is our enemy deck, so we'll find the particular enemies that it's mentioning, and I'll explain exactly what it's talking about here. So for instance, when it says the giant bats, you'll look through your enemy deck, and for that named type of enemy, giant bats, you'll find 3 of those, 2 standard and 1 elite. So when it says to shuffle giant bats, you actually take all 3 of those. Then we do the same for gigantic spiders. So again, you take both standard and elite and the 1 elite. And then we need goblin warriors. So in the same manner, 2 standard, 1 elite. And orc boys, and again, 2 standard, 1 elite. You'll take all 3 of those. But then you'll notice it says you need 4 open standard enemies. So what that means is you'll randomly choose 4 enemies not included in these groups that are from the same tier of enemies. So you'll notice this quest has a Roman numeral 1. That is a tier 1. And when you're looking in the enemy deck, the enemies will also have a Roman numeral up there. So that's the tier that matches the quest. So when we're looking for 4 open standard enemies, we'll get all of the other standard enemies that were not chosen as part of these named groups and shuffle them together, and we'll choose 4 of them. And remember, they have to be the same tier as the quest that you're playing. So in this example, these are the other standard tier 1 enemies that were not already chosen in the named groups of enemies. So we'll shuffle these, choose 4 of them. We won't look at which ones are chosen or which ones are not chosen. The not chosen ones will just go back in the box without us looking at them. And then 2 open elites. So we'll look at the other tier 1, since we're playing the tier 1 quest, the other tier 1 elites that have not already been chosen. There's 4 of those. We'll shuffle those up, and we'll randomly choose 2 of them to go with our group of enemies, and the other 2 will go back in the box. Again, we won't look at the ones we chose or the ones we put back in the box. So I'll shuffle those up and choose 2. Alright, so now I've shuffled up our enemy deck that contains our giant bats, giant spiders, goblin warriors, orc boys, and our 4 standard enemies and the 2 open elites that we chose. I've shuffled those all together and formed our enemy deck. Now we have to find the one, the nemesis called Odious Grump. So some of the enemies in your enemy deck have this icon, the quest icon on them. And that will, those are all nemesis enemies. So the one that it says that we'll use is Odious Grump. See, it says green skin nemesis. The other ones will just go back in the box. It says place the Odious Grump nemesis card in the nemesis lair. So we'll just say this is our nemesis lair, and it will just go there. And he'll spawn through other effects in the future. Peril effects, we'll talk about that when we talk about how to play. All right, we got to finish setup. So the next thing, shuffle 3 open locations together. The deck of cards with this back is your location deck. And again, they have tiers just like the enemies do. So you'll find all the tier 1 location cards. And The other ones we don't need. We'll shuffle all our tier 1s and choose 3, and we'll shuffle those 3 together to form our location deck. So here's the 3 random tier 1 locations that I've chosen out of the deck. I mean, I didn't choose them, they're randomly selected. You don't look at them, place them face down, and then you'll notice that it says place Grump Sump location card on the bottom of that deck. So just like the enemy deck, some of these location cards have the quest icon on them. You'll look for the one that says Grump Sump, since that's the one that it's asking for. The other ones can just go back in the box. We'll place that on the bottom of our 3 random tier 1 location cards. All right, next it says shuffle 12 open gear cards together and 12 open dungeon cards together. So again, for the gear cards and dungeon cards open, they don't have tiers on them like the location and enemy cards do, but some of them do have the quest icon, so you'll remove the quest icon cards, shuffle the others together, and draw 12 of each. So for instance, from the gear deck, I've removed the legendary fortune cards that have the quest icon. I'll shuffle the rest together and draw 12 face down at random to form our gear deck. So I've shuffled and dealt out 12 gear cards, open gear cards that don't have the quest icon on them. The other quest cards and the ones with the quest icon can just go back in the box. And then we do the same for the dungeon cards. The dungeon cards have this back. We remove any that have the quest icon on them, such as the warp stone and cannon. We'll shuffle the rest of the dungeon cards and deal 12 face down, and those will be our 12 dungeon cards. The rest will just go back in the box. All right, here's our deck of 12 dungeon cards. I've placed the other ones back in the box. We finished the setup section here. You can go ahead. This is some flavor text that tell a little bit about what's going on in this quest. There's the reward and penalty section. If you end up winning this quest or successfully completing this quest, you'll resolve the reward section. If you fail to complete the quest, you'll resolve the penalty section. We go ahead and flip this over. We'll need to put the peril marker on the first step of the peril track, like so. We'll choose one player to be the party leader, and they take this torch icon, the party leader icon. We'll choose our warrior priest, and they will take that party leader token, and they'll be the first player. They'll take the first turn of the game. All right, the next thing we'll do is reveal our first location card. We got the treasure vault. Again, this has got a little bit of flavor text on it that you can read. A little effect that takes place during the location phase, which we'll talk about during the how to play. What we need to look at now is that we need to see this section here. It means we need to spawn 3 enemies and then 1 enemy in the shadows. So when we're spawning these 3 enemies, we spawn them 1 to each player, starting with the party leader. So we'll grab 1 and put that in his engagement area. So he got an Orc boy, then in clockwise order we spawn the next one. That's a rat swarm. That goes to our iron breaker. And finally, the third one is another orc boy. That goes to our way watcher. So that's the 3 we spawned there. If there was a 4th one, then that would come back and go to our party leader. So again, you spawn them in clockwise order. But there is 1 more. That one goes in the shadows, so we don't look at that one. We just put that in our shadow area, which we'll say is right here. And that will complete our enemy spawning. And other than putting a supply of our dice somewhere nearby, which we'll just place ours right here, that completes setup. We've got our section with our quest and various decks. We've got each of our hero players, and we're ready to move on to how to play. All right, so we start with our party leader. The game is played in phases. First you have your hero phase, in which each hero gets to activate. Now when you're playing with only 3 players, the party leader gets to activate twice, so he'll activate first, then in clockwise order each player will activate, and then the party leader will get to activate twice. So that's the hero phase. After the hero phase you have the enemy phase, in which each enemy in play gets to activate. So all the enemies that are engaged with a hero, and then any enemies in the shadow, they'll each get to activate. Then there's the location phase, where you'll check your location card, and there may be a start of location phase text, or at this one, it says at the end of the location phase. You'll see a little number here. That's the number of progress tokens that need to be added to this location, and if you've added enough progress tokens to this location, 8, then during the location phase you can discard this location card and move on and flip the next location over. And finally, after the location phase, then you have the peril phase, where you'll move this marker along the peril track, and if you get to a colored location, you resolve, like if you get to this green location, then you resolve what's here in the green bar. When you get to the blue, you would resolve what's here in the blue bar, and when you get to the orangey color there, you resolve what's specified there in the orange bar. Then after you've completed the peril phase, the last thing you do is move the party leader token clockwise to the next player and begin a new hero phase. So when a hero activates, he performs the action on one of his cards. When he performs that action, he has to exhaust that card. So when you exhaust it, you just rotate it 90 degrees, and then, well, this one's not a good example. So if you chose like the explore action, you would, after you finished it, you would exhaust it, and then the next time it becomes this player's turn again, he will only have 3 actions with which he can choose, because he can't choose one that's already been exhausted. Now, each player has a different card that has this like little refresh symbol on it. So when they perform that action, at the end of performing that action, they get to ready all their actions again. So any that they had previously exhausted, once they perform this, or once this player performs this action, he then gets to ready all of his cards. So that's how they get set back to ready after they're exhausted. Now, for the warrior priest, it's the rest action that has the symbol down there that readies all his cards. I think that's called the prepare action, that symbol. Anyway, for the warrior priest, it's his rest action. For example, for the Way Watcher, it is her attack action that has that, so not the same as the warrior priest. And for our iron breaker, it's his aid action that has the little prepare icon that refreshes all of his exhausted cards. Alright, so now let's talk about the different possible actions. As I said, all of the players have the same attack, aid, explore, and rest. It's just the details of those cards that are different for each of the heroes. So we'll, for example, look at the warrior priest's attack action. So the first thing you'll see it says on this card is you may engage one enemy. So if the warrior priest uses his attack action, he can engage one enemy. And what engage means, he can pull an enemy from one of the other heroes. So he could, if he wants to engage this orc boy, he could pull that over into his play area and then be engage with 2 orc boys, or he could decide to engage the rat swarm engaged over here with our iron breaker, or he could engage the enemy in the shadows, and if he does that, he flips it over and reveals it and pulls it into his play area. But that says may, so you're not required to do that. He just can engage one enemy. Next thing on his attack card is the attack symbol. You'll see that's bolded. So every player's attack card will have an attack, but it may have a little bit different details and allow you to roll a different number of dice. So it has 2 dice symbols, so that means he'll get to roll 2 of the white dice when he attacks. And it says before this action you may exhaust another action, so one of his other actions that's not already exhausted, to target 1 additional enemy and apply 1 success. So normally when you perform an attack you can only choose 1 enemy to apply your attack toward. But if, for example, he had used his ability to engage 1 enemy and had pulled another enemy over here, he may want to do this, which allows him to exhaust one of his other actions to target 1 additional enemy. And that way he could say, I'm targeting this enemy and this enemy with my attack. And it gives him 1 additional success in his attack if he does that. So again, that one says you may, you don't have to. But the main part of the attack action is you'll roll a number of dice. Now whenever you perform any action, if you are engaged with an enemy, you have to roll 1 black dice for each enemy you're engaged with. So in this case he's engaged currently with 1 orc boy, so he would also have to roll 1 black die. So it's not just the attack action, it's any action, any of your 4 actions that you're performing. If you're engaged with an enemy, for each enemy that you're engaged with you have to roll a black die. So if he had 2 enemies here, he would have to roll 2 black dice. As long as those enemies are not exhausted, as long as they're readied. If an enemy is in your engagement area but it's already exhausted, then you don't roll a black die for that one. Alright, so if he's going to make his attack, now he would roll these dice. Let's look at the symbols on the dice. So the 2 axes or hammers or whatever those are, each one of those crossed hammers symbols is a success. So this would be 2 successes, this would be 1 success, this would be 1 success. This symbol is called a critical success. So when you get a critical success, that counts as 1 success and you get to roll it again. So to keep track of that, you can get one of these success tokens and mark it and then roll that die again. And if you got another critical success, if I had rolled another critical success, then I would get to roll that again. That would count as 1 success, so I'd put a success token and get to roll it again. And then, so if this was my total roll, if I'd gotten the critical successes twice and then gotten this, that would be a total of 4 successes, these 2 and this one. But now just for example, let's roll it again because I don't remember what I had in my first roll. So in this case, he would have 2 successes. We'll talk about what this shield, there is that shields on this die, this one, and then the one that was on that we rolled, that one counts as a success and a shield or a defense result. So in any case, in this case we got 2 successes, so we would apply 2 wounds to our orc boy here. Now you'll see his health is 2, but this number right here, this little number in the gold there, that's called his resilience. So that will absorb one of our hits. And then because we only got 2 hits and the first one is absorbed because he's got 1 resilience, the other one would apply. So he would just take 1 wound. So you would put 1 wound marker there. Now if we had gotten 3 successes, then 1 would be absorbed by the resilience or hit and then the other 2 would apply, and that would be all of his health, so then he would just get discarded. But in this case, we only did 1 wound to him. Now, if on the black die you rolled this attack symbol, then that has the enemy that you attacked did a hit to you, and this is the amount that they hit you with too. Now, since we rolled the 1 defense, we would subtract 1 from that, and we would end up taking 1 wound. And we would have to place 1 wound on our hero card. Let's look at the other results on this black die. You have several of those attack symbols, you have a couple of blanks, and then you have this nemesis symbol. If you roll this nemesis symbol, you have to look at your nemesis, which in this quest it's Odious Grump, and you look on his card at the nemesis symbol, and it says distribute 2 wounds among the party. So anytime we roll that, we'll have to distribute 2 wounds however we see fit amongst our party's heroes. If you're engaged with 2 enemies and you roll something like this, well, we would roll, we would have rolled 2 black dice, but let's say we got 1 of the attack symbols and 1 blank, then you have to take the hit from the enemy with the highest tier. In this case, this orc boy is a tier 2, so you would have to take the damage, the 2 damage instead of the 1 damage from the rat swarm. If they're the same tier enemy, like if this was a tier 1 and this is a tier 1, but this one did 2 damage and this one did 1 damage, then you take the hit from the one that does more damage. So again, you would have to take 2 damage and of course block from 1 with our shield. But that's how attack works. And then of course this card would be exhausted, so on the warrior priest next turn he wouldn't have attack to choose from. He would only have his aid, explore, and rest to choose from until he does his rest action, and then at the end of that he gets to ready all of his cards. Now I'm just going to give a quick look at attack action of a couple of our other heroes. I won't go through all the details, but I wanted to show the difference of the Way Watcher. Her attack action, deadly shot, you'll see it says ranged attack. Now she only gets to roll 1 dice, whereas our warrior priest got to roll 2. And if we look at our Iron Breaker, he gets to roll 2 as well. But since hers is ranged, she can attack either an enemy that's engaged with her, or she can attack an enemy in the shadows, or she can attack an enemy that is engaged with one of the other heroes. So that's kind of a little advantage that she has, but she does roll less white dice. And then of course, like I said, this is the one, after she does this, she gets to ready all of her other actions. So another action we have is the aid action. Now you'll see this one allows the warrior priest here to roll 2 white dice when he does the aid action. When you do the aid action, before you roll your dice, you choose another hero, and that's the hero you're going to aid. For every success you roll, you get to give them a success token, and then they can place those success tokens on their cards, which will allow them to count an extra success when they do that, whatever action it is that they place that success token on. Now, you can only place up to 2 success tokens on 1 card. So if you aided another player and happen to get 4 success tokens, they could place 2 on 1 card and 2 on another. They can place those success tokens however they wish, but you can't have more than 2 on 1 card. And then there's some other effects there that are probably different for each hero. For instance, for the warrior priest here, the target hero may ready 1 action. So if you chose this hero to aid, they would get to ready one of their already exhausted actions. And you and the target hero each recover 1 wound. So in other words, you get to take 1 wound away from yourself that you have. If we look at the Iron Breaker's aid action, you see he only gets to roll one white dice. There's just a die icon for one die there. But it says before this action you may engage one enemy engaged with the target hero. And as with the attack action, whenever you do the aid action, you roll not only the number of white dice that it shows on your card, you also have to roll black dice for the number of enemies that are engaged with you. All right, let's look at the next action. We have the Explore action, and we'll see for our Warrior Priest here, he gets to roll 2 white dice when he does the Explore action, and of course 1 black dice for each enemy engaged with him, in this case just 1. But when you explore, that lets you place progress tokens on the location for each success that you get. So the heroes need 8 progress tokens on this location before they can travel to the next location. So the way you get them is doing the explore. So if he rolled for this, he got 2 successes, he would get to put 2 progress tokens on there. Progress tokens come in denomination of 1 or 3, so he would put 2 1s on there, and then whenever you get up to 3, you can just change it over to a 3. And then, of course, because he rolled an attack for the enemy, he would have to take 2 damage from this enemy, but he did roll 2 shields, so that would block both of those damage. All right, but then if you look at the rest of the card, and most of the heroes have this same thing, after you explore, you get to draw and resolve 1 dungeon card. So these are our dungeon cards the hero would get to draw. And for instance, this one is an item. You may discard this card after a hero's activation to add 1 progress to the location. You'll also notice that some, including this one, dungeon cards have this little coin icon. If the dungeon card you draw does have that, then you also get to draw a gear card. So we'll just say if we look at this top gear card, it's an accessory, a pendant, the gem of Assyrian. You may deplete this card. Deplete means turn it over and it's used for the rest of the quest. You don't get to turn it back over during this quest. But you may deplete this card before your activation for up to 2 heroes to become empowered. Empowered is a condition. If we look at that right here, if you get a condition like empowered, you take this card and put it in your play area, and you'll see this one says you do not exhaust the next action card you use. During that action, apply 1 success and 1 defense. After that action, discard this condition. So that's what this gear card will allow you. Now, during the first quest, you're only ever allowed to have 1 gear card. In between quests, there's like a settlement phase, and during that you do have the possibility to increase the number of gear cards that you can equip, but in the first campaign you could only equip 1. And then besides drawing the dungeon card, the Warrior Priest also has choose 1 hero. That hero claims 1 success token, so that little icon right there means 1 success token. And you'll notice that all these action cards have a little flavor text at the bottom that you can read. Right, and finally we have the rest action. So for this particular one, it says you may exhaust 1 non-nemesis enemy engaged with you. So when you exhaust an enemy, you just turn them sideways, turn them 90 degrees. And of course when they're exhausted, then when you're performing an action, you don't have to roll a black die from them. And also in the enemy phase, an exhausted enemy will not get to activate. So that's the first thing there. But the main thing with the rest is the rest action. Now you'll see that this player, he only gets to roll 1 white dice when he rests. But he would not have to roll a black dice because that enemy, if he did this and exhausted that enemy, then he would not have to roll a black dice for him. Now you notice it says non-nemesis, so remember the only nemesis we have in this quest is Odious Grump. If he was engaged with you, you would not get to exhaust him with that ability. But then you'd roll a white die, and for every success that you got, you get to heal one of your wounds. And then this guy also has this other ability. Choose one hero, that hero becomes empowered. We've already seen what that is. And then you get to ready all of your actions. Whereas if we look at the Way Watcher, we'll see with her rest card, she also gets to exhaust one non-nemesis enemy. Then she gets to choose one enemy that's engaged with her, and that enemy retreats. Retreat means they go back into the shadows, so they're no longer engaged with you. And then she gets to roll 2 white dice for her rest action. And for each success, she gets to remove 1 wound. That covers all the basic actions. Alright, so as I said, each hero would get to activate, starting with the party hero, doing one of their actions, then in clockwise order, next hero, the next hero, and then in a 3-player game, the party leader would get to take a second action. In a 4-player game, each hero would just get to take 1 action, and in a 2-player game, each hero would end up taking 2 actions. It would be this player would take an action, then this one, then this one, and then this one. So there's always 4 hero activations, no matter how many number of players there are. Alright, once the hero phase ends, then you move on to the enemy phase where the enemies will get to activate. So let's talk about how that works. Alright, so in the enemy phase, the heroes will take turns activating enemies until all enemies that are in play have been activated. So when you would start with the party leader, just like you do during the hero phase, and if they have 1 or more enemies engaged with them, then they will activate one of those enemies. And when you activate an enemy, you just look at their effect bar and follow all the steps in their effect bar. Now, this orc boy only has 1, which is advance, and what that means is if they were in the shadows, they would advance to this hero and they would be engaged with him. Because he's already engaged with this hero, it really does nothing. So when he activates this enemy, it advances, it's already there, so that's all it can do, so you just exhaust it. Now the next player would activate an enemy. So in this case, our Iron Breaker, he would activate this enemy he's engaged with. So its first effect is to advance. Well, it's already here, so there's nothing else. But then it would do inflict. So inflict means it causes the amount of damage shown here to that hero. So he would do 1 wound to the Iron Breaker. Alright, and then that's all he would do. He would be exhausted. And then you come to the Orc Boy, and again he would just advance. He's already there, so there's nothing else he would do. He would be exhausted. Now we would come back to the Warrior Priest. He has no readied enemies engaged with him, so if you don't have a readied enemy engaged with you, then if there's an enemy in the shadows, then you would activate that enemy. So you would flip this enemy over and just see, we'll just look at it. And you would follow its activation. So retreat means it would go back into the shadows where it already is, and then it would inflict, which means it would do 1 damage to the Warrior Priest. And then it would be exhausted. And in this case, that would then exhaust all our enemies, so that would be the end of the enemy phase. So just to sum up again, during the enemy phase, the heroes take turns in order, starting with the party leader, activating an enemy that's engaged with them. If they don't have an enemy engaged with them, then they activate an enemy in the shadows. If there's not an enemy in the shadows, then they just skip their turn and you go to the next hero who will activate one enemy engaged with them, and so forth. And you continue going around until there's no more enemies, no more readied enemies. Once an enemy has been activated, then you exhaust them. So once there's no more readied enemies, you end the enemy phase. Alright, after the enemy phase, you move on to the location phase. We've talked about this already. You'll look at your location card. If there's a start of location effect, then you'll do that. This one doesn't. It has an end of location effect. After your start of location effect, if you've managed to put enough progress tokens to equal the number down here in the right hand corner, you can decide if you want to travel from that location. That means that location is fully explored. Now you're not required to travel from that location at that time. You can wait and do that, in a future round if you still want to try to maybe defeat some enemies. Because when you travel to a new location, any enemies in the shadows will not follow you. But if you have any enemies engaged with you, then those enemies will stay engaged with you and follow you to the next location. And you don't want to be bringing a lot of enemies with you, because remember, when you discard this location and travel to the new location, you will flip it over and you will spawn new enemies. So if you take a bunch of enemies with you and then spawn new enemies, that's going to be a lot of enemies you got to defeat. So it's probably a good idea to get rid of the ones that are engaged with you before you travel. But anyway, if you decide not to travel, or you haven't put enough progress tokens on there to travel, if there's an end of location phase like there is on this one, which says at the end of the location phase, the party leader may claim one gear card. If he does, he spawns one enemy, limit once per quest. And finally, after the location phase, you go to the peril phase, which we've already talked about, where you'll increase your token on the peril track. And if you reach a color that matches one of the bars, you resolve that, whatever that says. So for instance, like when this one gets to the green, there's some flavor text, and then it says spawn odious grump. So he would come out of the nemesis lair, and so he would spawn to the party leader and be engaged with him. If the token reaches the last space and you resolve that, every turn after that, if there's another peril phase, it doesn't advance any further, but you'll continue to resolve this effect during the peril phase. And then, as I've already mentioned, after all effects on the peril track are resolved, the party leader will pass the party leader token to his left, and that player will be the party leader for the new round, and you start a new round with the hero phase. And you continue until either a victory or defeat condition is met. The victory condition on this quest is during the location phase, if Grump's Sump is fully explored, resolve the reward on the back of this sheet. And the defeat happens if all heroes are defeated. Resolve penalty on the back of the sheet. So, of course, a hero is defeated if his health reaches 0, if he has a number of wound tokens on his hero card equal to his health value, then he's defeated and just out for the rest of the quest. If you're playing the campaign, then, as I said, a defeated hero is out for the remainder of the quest while the other players try to complete it, but they will come back in the settlement phase, which takes place after either a win or a loss of the quest, and that's something you do in between the quests in a campaign. If you're just playing one quest and not doing the campaign, then if you're defeated, you're just out and you've lost. But anyway, in this quest, if all the heroes are defeated, then you resolve the defeat on the back of this, and we can just look at that real quick. There's flavor text here, of course, to read, but If you're defeated, you do the penalty and you add Odious Grump to the campaign pool, meaning Odious Grump will move on and be one of the enemies in the next quest in the campaign. If you were successful and completed the victory portion of this quest, then you add Odious Grump and one legendary fortune gear card to the campaign pool, and those will be part of the cards that are used during the next quest as part of the campaign. I think that pretty much covers most of the rules. One thing I didn't mention is you can never have more than 3 enemies engaged with one hero. If a hero would get a 4th enemy engaged with them, instead that enemy will just deal damage to them equal to whatever their damage value is, and then will go into the shadows. I'll just talk a little bit about if you're doing the campaign. In between the campaigns, you have the settlement stage. So like I said, you go and you suffer the reward or the penalty depending on if you got the victory or defeat. And then each hero has an opportunity during the settlement stage. They can visit either the trainer, the blacksmith, or the arena. They can they can do 2 of them. If they visit the trainer, then they can exchange one of their basic action cards for the advanced action card of the same type. If they visit the blacksmith, then they get to draw 2 gear cards as long as the gear deck is not empty, and equip one of them. And the third thing they can do is visit the arena, and when a hero visits the arena, they get to increase their gear capacity by 1. And remember, I said in the first quest, your gear capacity is only 1. So if you have 1 piece of gear, and during your settlement action you visit the blacksmith to get a 2nd piece of gear, you would have to either discard one of them after you drew the new one, or instead you could visit the arena first to increase your gear capacity by 1, and then visit the blacksmith to get a new gear card. And as I said, there is a campaign log in the back of the how to play or learn to play book that you can copy, or you can probably download it somewhere. And that just allows you to keep track of the state of the campaign, like what gear each player has and what quests they're on and so forth, if you're not going to do the whole campaign at one time. But I think that pretty much wraps up the how to play portion. So let's go on and do a few example turns. Alright, well I think I've got everything set back how it was right after setup. So let's go on with some example turns. So we start with the hero phase with our party leader. So he will do 1 action. I think he's going to, we'll have him explore. So we'll see he's going to roll 2 white dice and then 1 black dice because he's engaged with 1 readied enemy. Alright, so that's 1 success. This is a critical success, so that'll give him another, and he'll get to re-roll this. Alright, so he got 3 successes. So we will put 3 progress on our location. Then he gets to draw and resolve 1 dungeon card. So he'll get his 1 dungeon card. You find a small innocuous casket, surely full of treasure. It's not even locked. What's the worst that could happen? You may claim 1 gear card. If you do, roll 1 enemy die. On an attack result, you become sickened. So sickened is a condition that says during your action, apply -1 success. And then before your rest action, discard this condition. I don't think we want to do that, so we're not going to get our gear card. So we'll just discard this dungeon card. And then choose 1 hero. That hero claims 1 success token. We'll give that to our next player, who is going to be the Iron Breaker, and we'll say he's going to put that on his attack. And that's going to be it for our Explore. So we're going to exhaust that. And now we go on to our next hero. Alright, so now we come to our Iron Breaker. He's going to resolve one of his actions. Because he put this success token on his attack, I think he's going to go ahead and attack this rat swarm. It has no resilience, but it has 3 health. So first he can engage up to 2 enemies. So he can engage another enemy if he wants to. And I think he's going to do that. So he's going to pull this Orc Boy from our Way Watcher and engage that one as well. And then attack. Before this action, you may target up to 2 enemies. He's going to target both of those. He can apply the results however he wants, but as long as he says he's going to target both of them, then he can apply the results depending on what he rolls. So, alright, so you'll see that he gets 2 white dice, and he's going to get 2 black dice since he's got 2 enemies there. Alright, well, that was not good. No successes. Well, he has the 1 success that he got from here. So he will apply that to the rat swarm. So we'll put the wound token there. Then both of these attacks were successful, so he's going to do 2 damage. He's going to do 1 damage for a total of 3, but we blocked 2 of that damage, so he's just going to get 1 wound token as well. So we will put that on there. And then this card is exhausted, and we move on to our Way Watcher. Alright, just to show something a little different, we'll have our Way Watcher do her aid action. So she has to pick who she's going to aid, so we'll say she's going to aid the Warrior Priest. Remember, he'll get 1 additional activation before the end of this round. So she's going to aid him. She rolls 2 white dice. She's not engaged with any enemies, so she doesn't have to roll any black dice. And unfortunately, we just got 1 success. So the Warrior Priest decides he'll put that on his attack card. Then let's finish looking at her aid. The target hero may ready 1 action, so he'll ready his Explore card. And then you may choose 1 enemy engaged with the target hero. That enemy suffers 1 wound. So when a card like this says the enemy suffers 1 wound, the resilience does not count. So they just take the wound no matter. They don't get to block it with their resilience. That only counts when they're being attacked by a hero. If a card or some other game effect says it suffers some amount of damage, then they just take that amount of damage. So he will take 1 wound. And that card is now exhausted. And that's going to be the Way Watcher's turn. So now, as I said, the Warrior Priest gets 1 additional activation. That's because we're doing a 3-player game. So he's going to activate and do his attack action. He may engage 1 enemy. I don't think he's going to. So he'll do an attack. He has 1 success already. He rolls 2 white dice, and then of course 1 black dice because he's engaged with this enemy. So we'll see what we get. Alright, so he got 2 successes plus 3 for this. So one of his successes would be absorbed, and then his other success plus this one is going to be enough to kill this Orc Boy. So we'll just put that in the enemy discard pile. And he did have, before he did that, he could have exhausted another action to target 1 additional enemy, but he didn't engage another enemy. This is discarded because we used it. And that's going to be it for his attack action. We'll discard that, and that's going to end the hero phase. Alright, so now we go on to the enemy phase, where the enemies will activate, and we start with the party leader activating any enemies that's still ready that he's engaged with. He doesn't have any, so then he activates an enemy in the shadows if there is one. There is one. Since it's activated, we flip it over. It's the giant bat. It retreats to the shadows, which that's where it already is, and then it does inflict, so it does 1 wound to our warrior priest, so he will get 1 wound. And then we exhaust that enemy. Alright, now next we go to our Iron Breaker. He has to activate an enemy, so he'll activate his Orc Boy. The Orc Boy, all it does is advance, so it doesn't do any attack. So that's it for him. Next we go to the next player. She would activate an enemy. She doesn't have any. There's none in the shadows for her to activate, so we just skip her. Again, we go back to this player. He doesn't have any to activate, none in the shadows to activate. So we go back to our Iron Breaker, and he'll activate, oh, we forgot to exhaust that one. He'll activate this one, which doesn't advance. It's already here. And then it doesn't inflict, so it will do 1 damage to the Iron Breaker. So he will take an additional wound. And then this one's exhausted. And now that is all the enemies in the play area have activated. So now we go ahead and ready all the enemies, and that ends the enemy phase. Alright, now we go to the location phase. So we go to our location here. There's no start of location phase effect. We haven't put enough progress tokens on there to travel to the next location, so we just do any end of location effects, which is at the end of the location phase the party leader may claim 1 gear card. If he does, he spawns 1 enemy. I don't think he wants to spawn an enemy, so he's not going to claim the gear card, and that is going to end the location phase. So now we go on to the peril phase, where we'll just advance this peril token. It doesn't reach any of the colored locations, so there's no effect there. Last thing we do in the peril phase is move the party leader token over clockwise, making a new party leader, which will be the Iron Breaker. That's going to end the peril phase, and now we go on to the hero phase again. Alright, so we're at our Iron Breaker. Now he can't use his attack because that's already been used, and he can't refresh it until he uses his aid action. I think he's going to do an explore. We've got to try to make it through. Remember, what we're trying to do is get through all these locations and get to the last one, which is Grump Sump. And once we complete that one, remember to get the victory during the location phase. If Grump Sump is fully explored, we get a victory for this. So we really want to get through these locations. So he's going to explore. So he rolls 2 white dice, and unfortunately he's engaged with 2 enemies, so also 2 black dice. And good, we got 4 successes and 2 blanks. That's great. So now we've got 7 progress tokens on this location. We just need 1 more, so that is good. Let's look at what else he had on his explore. He's got to draw 1 dungeon card, and he's either resolve that card or exhaust an action to place it on the bottom of the dungeon deck. So he'll draw a dungeon card. He got an item, Horn of Grimnir. You may discard this card before a hero's activation to exhaust 2 non-nemesis enemies. Well, that's pretty good. He'll keep that in his play area. And now his Explorer card gets exhausted, and that's going to end his activation. So we will go on to the Waywatcher. We'll do her attack. She may engage 1 enemy. She's not going to do that, but she is going to do her ranged attack, which she only gets to roll 1 white dice, but she can attack an enemy engaged with another hero or the shadows. I think she's going to attack this rat swarm. And so during this action, if you defeat at least 1 enemy, you recover 1 wound. Well, she doesn't have any wounds, so we're not too worried about that. Unfortunately, she only gets 1 die. She's not engaged with any enemies, so she doesn't have to roll a black die. 2 successes, that's all we need, because this rat swarm already had 1 wound, so 2 more will make a 3. That's going to defeat that rat swarm, so we'll put that in the discard pile. And since we defeated an enemy, if we had a wound, we would get to recover it. We don't. And now she gets to ready all her actions, because that's her card that refreshes them all. So she gets to ready her aid card, and that's going to end her action. Alright, well, we will have our warrior priest go now. We're going to have him explore so we can go ahead and be able to pass this location at the end of when we get to the location phase. So he gets to roll 2 white dice. He's not engaged with any enemies, so he doesn't have to roll any black dice. 2 successes, that's all we need because we only need a total of 8. Now you can't put more progress tokens than the number allows, so we won't put 2 on there, we'll just put 1 on there, which will give us a total of 8. And then we must draw and resolve 1 dungeon card, so we will do that. Uh-oh, sudden strike. Your foes are difficult to predict, feinting and striking with terrifying precision. The highest ranked ready enemy activates and then readies. Well, the highest ranked enemy is going to be our orc boy. He activates, which all he does is advance. But since advance puts him in the active enemy's engagement zone, the active hero's engagement zone, our active hero is the warrior priest, so it's actually going to advance over to him since he's the one who's still the active player, resolving, his dungeon card. We also got a treasure icon on this card, so we get to draw a gear card, or the warrior priest gets to draw a gear card. He got a weapon, a great sword during your attack action. If all the target enemies are engaged with you, you may convert 1 defense into a success, so he will keep that in his play area. And then normally, because an enemy activates, it becomes exhausted, but this card says it activates and then readies, so it doesn't become exhausted once it moves over here to the active hero. Alright, let's finish doing our explore action. It says choose 1 hero. That hero claims 1 success token. We'll choose the Ironbreaker. We'll give him this success token on his rest card, and we'll just, because I'm going to have him when he gets his second activation here, I'm going to have him do that just so we can have seen each action in play. So that's going to do it for our Explore card. That one will now become exhausted and won't be available to the Warrior Priest until he does his rest action, because that's the one with his little prepare icon. So now we're back to our party leader, the Ironbreaker. Since he's the party leader, he gets a second activation during this hero phase. We'll have him do his rest. So he may exhaust 1 non-nemesis enemy engaged with him. He doesn't have any rest. He gets to roll 2 white dice, and during this action he could apply 2 shields. He doesn't have to roll any black dice because there's no enemies engaged with him, so it doesn't matter. Plus he's going to use this one to give him an extra success. So he gets 3. He's only got 2 wounds, so he probably didn't even need to use that. He could have just left it on the card. But we did say we were going to use it, so we must put it back in the supply. And he's fully healed now, and we have to exhaust that one. So on his next activation, he'll have no choice but to use his shield, or his aid card, Shield Wall, because that's the only card he has left. When he uses that, it will prepare and ready all his other cards. But that's going to end our hero phase for this round. We now move on to the enemy activation phase. So we start with our party leader. He doesn't have any engaged with him. There's 1 in the shadows, so he'll activate that one. It does a retreat, which it's already in the shadows, so it's going to stay there. And now it doesn't inflict, so it will do 1 wound to him. So he will take 1 wound, and that will exhaust the giant bat. We come to our Way Watcher. She doesn't have any enemies engaged with her. The only one in the shadows is exhausted, so we'll just skip her turn. And now we come to our Warrior Priest. He has 1 enemy engaged with him, but the only thing it has in its effect bar is advance, which it's already engaged with him, so it's not going to do anything. and we will then just exhaust it. And that is all the enemies we have, so that's going to end the enemy phase. So we will go ahead and ready the 2 enemies that we have in play. That brings us to our location phase. There's no start of location phase. Now we do have enough progress tokens on here where we can travel to a new location, so we decide we want to do that. So we will discard these progress tokens. We will discard this location, flip over our new location card. We got the Throng of Webs. We have to spawn 1 enemy, so we draw it. It goes to the party leader, which is our Iron Breaker over here. So he got a Goblin Warrior. And then we spawn 3 in the shadows. So we will put 3 face down up here in the shadows. Now normally any enemies that when you travel to a new location, normally any enemies you have in the shadows do not remain with you. But you'll see this giant bat has a ability here that says when the party travels, this enemy is not discarded. So unfortunately our giant bat stays with us. And now we're at the end of the location phase, and there is an effect here at the end of the location phase. The party leader exhausts 1 action, but his only action he has to exhaust is his the one that has his refresh or prepare icon on there, and nothing, no game effect can cause a player to exhaust that card, so it just stays readied. So that is going to end our location phase, and now we go on to the peril phase, where we will move on to the green, and it says, a grinning goblin steps into view. This is Grump's place. He waves a nasty, filth-smeared dagger at you. Zog off or I's gonna shank you with me shank. Spawn odious Grump. So we will spawn him to our party leader, so he will now be engaged with the Iron Breaker as well. And we now pass our party leader token to the Way Watcher. Alright, I think that we've gone through 2 rounds. That should give you a pretty good idea of how the game plays. Again, you're trying to get through, at least for this quest, you're trying to get through your locations till you get to the, so we've got 1, 2, and then we would get to the Grump Sump. And then if we get enough progress tokens on that one, we'd have victory. If the heroes get defeated before that, then you have defeat. Alright, so as far as what I think of this game, it seems pretty fun. I mean, I've all the times I've played with it, I've pretty much played by myself, just, controlling several heroes. And I usually fail. I mean, I have gone on, done a whole quest, because even if you get defeated here, you still go on to the next quest. You just don't get whatever the reward was. I think it was the legendary card that goes into your campaign pool. So I have managed to go through this whole quest, but I didn't do very well. So it's tough. It's definitely not easy. But it is fun, and I actually have a friend of mine coming over this weekend. We're going to play some games, and since I have just done this video on this one, this is the one we're going to play, so we'll see how it goes. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed it. Thanks for watching.